Welcome everybody back. We have about an hour conversation right now where we're going to talk about Playhouse Arts as the local arts agency for the city of Arcata. And this is something that Fawn and I have been working on for how many years would you say, Fawn?
Well, I don't know, I think too many to count at this
Yeah.
point.
A little while, like, 6 or 7 years easily. In 2013, we got an Our Town grant and we presented the Creamery Festival and started looking at the Playhouse as the local arts agency for the city of Arcata and what that meant and how it could what it could do for artists, artisans, culture bearers, participants, audiences, legislatures, the whole shoot and match. So what the role of the local arts agency could be. And so we're getting closer to having some sort of vision of what it could be. A local arts agency means very different things for very different communities. They are as diverse and as they all have different roles as there are people who live in groups in the United States. Some arts agencies have venues that they support. Some have, re-granting programs that they support. Some are smaller and just do, artists in schools. It really, some are attached to a city, so they are part of a city government. And so trying to decide what an arts agency would look like within the city of Arcata has been a really, it's been a great challenge and an opportunity to really look at how we, as the Arcata Playhouse and Playhouse Arts, have operated thus far in our community and how we could begin to peel apart some of those ball of threads that are all balled up together and begin to see where other things can move from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to give you the scope of what I know about this presentation. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at a map of my mind. I know that sounds scary, but it's not nearly as scary as it sounds. So we're going to look at a mind map that I've done that sort of walks through elements of the local arts agency. And we'll just talk about all the different things that I've thought, and Fawn and I have sort of batted around, and then talking with Gillen and Delo and the city. So how that would look to us. And then Gillen and Delo are also going to give a little presentation after that about the strategic arts plan, which is separate and connected to the local arts agency. Some of the other things we're going to talk about are the core values of the arts agency, what we see as the 3 core values of the arts agency. The caveat on all of this is that none of it is written in stone, none of it is set, and the goal of the arts agency is that we remain lean and resilient so that we are able to react quickly, that we're not bogged down in bureaucracy and so many processes that we lose sight of what we're trying to do, which is build community through the arts. So that's part of the thing about the local arts agency and why I felt it was important to do a talk today, to really give people a chance to hear what we're thinking and to give feedback to us that says, what about this? And when I lived in, so-and-so Arizona, Bisbee, Arizona, there was a la la la, or, just a chance for everybody to give feedback on what that could look like or what they've seen or what they dream. To quote Dr. Katja Risling-Baldi, I dream a world. What is our world that we dream right now? And dreams that seemed really far-fetched. Last March, when we did the Women's Festival finished and we closed the theater on March 9th, 2020. So what seemed far-fetched last year is actually closer and closer and closer to running in the stream of what is possible. And so that is, I always say that this time is devastatingly hopeful because there is so much hope about what's going to happen coming out of the devastation, the phoenix rising from the ashes, if you will. So that's that. Fawn, did you have anything to add to my little
No,
diatribe?
I think you did a great introduction to how local arts agencies can serve communities in different ways, and just the fact that we are still evolving what it's going to look like for this community, and we're hoping that we get some good feedback and questions today.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share my screen, and it might, host disabled participant screen sharing. Shoshana, I seem to be having some difficulty. I don't know if she's at her desk or not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are? Okay, sorry.
How can I help you?
You never take a break, Shoshana. I always think that maybe you won't be there, but you're always there. I would like to be able to share my screen. So.
Done.
I'm the co-host now. I feel so powerful. Here is my screen. So just let me get it to a place where I can begin the presentation. Yeesh. View, start presentation, start walkthrough. So we don't have to look at it. So here we are. Can everybody see it? I can't hear you, so I'm just gonna assume that you can. Yeah. Okay, great. Wait, there's someone in the chat saying something. Chat.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so here is Playhouse Arts, which is a local arts agency. Oh dear. And it is made up of programs that'll fall under the local arts agency, which are, it's all going crazy. Hold up, I got to get it smaller or something. Sorry, people. It worked so lovely when I did it on my own computer. Stop. I'm going to stop and start again. Excuse me. View. Start presentation. Okay, I'll just do it.
Technology is really a gift and a curse.
I know, especially for people, because it works so well on my computer. So we have programs, we have venues. One venue right now is the Arcata Playhouse. Some local arts agencies have many venues, like the city of Seattle. And when we get to a point that we have $1 million budget, we will be able to have many venues as well. The Playhouse does music. They produce touring musicians. They produce local musicians. They also have rentals, films, theater, lectures, community events, fundraisers for nonprofits, meetings, discussions, and we also have personal events. So weddings, memorials, birthdays. Look, we have music, more music. We also do things like rent the theater for a week to local schools so they can do their theater productions in a theater and not be in the school gym, or maybe they don't have a school gym, or maybe their school gym is too small. We also have artists in residence. Right now it is YAS, Youth Arts Will Succeed, and that is Andrea Stuckey, as well as Four on the Floor. Four on the Floor produces Elemental, which is a biannual sort of outdoor spectacle with giant puppets and shadow and all kinds of things go on with Elemental. And usually it's embedded in the Creamery Festival, or it has been embedded in Del Arte's Summer Festival as well. It's also been embedded into a festival in, I'm forgetting the name of it. It's not Cloverdale. We also do original theater productions. So A Woman's Place is in Her Home. The Round Story, which we're engaging in, it's a multi-year project. Tell me if I'm going too fast. It's always been a thing. Round Story, we have a production coming up called Migrations that Laura Munoz is spearheading, and that will be about all forms of migration. And we completed a piece called Intersections Where We Meet. We did that show online in the fall. We also have Women of the Northwest. It was a production we wrote about the history of women in the Northwest, and we did it 3 times, I believe. twice we rewrote it to include Indigenous women, a story about the Chinese expulsion, and a story about the Amity Club. So that was Women of the Northwest. And we did a production called Echoes of War, which was about the stories of coming home from veterans. We're now working on a project called Dancing with the Ballot, which I'll be talking about with the team tomorrow, which is all about voting for women between the pandemics. So the pandemic of the early 1900s and of the one that we're in right now, that I'm not even going to acknowledge. No, I'm kidding. I will acknowledge. We also have the Women's Festival, which we're in right now. We have an art studio. Haley Davis is an artist in residence there. She does a lot of work. So is Mackenzie Ridgewood. She does a lot of work in the art studio. We have an audio studio that... Oh, is it? Oh, geez. It's stuck on migrations? That's because it's such a great production. Sorry, I don't know how to get it off that. Maybe I'll just talk and then I'll show you the map at the end when I come out. We have an audio studio and we have a program called Humboldt Hot Air, which is a fully functioning audio studio that locals can produce audio pieces and actually have shows. We have an ASCAP license so people can actually have music shows with Humboldt Hot Air. Oh, look, it's me again with no screen being shown. Should I try share screen again? Is that what they're driving at? Here, I'll try it again. How about that? Can you see it now? Humboldt Hot Air? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And it's so strange. One moment. Uh-oh. I actually plugged in to our... the slideshow got frozen? Okay. Let me, can you see it now? Okay. Okay, here, let me share screen again, and I'll just move it around. I'll stop with my fancy business. How, can you see that? A black screen, stop share. Sorry, everybody.
Jenny Council from the chat is saying maybe if you gave it an extra second, it might load. It might.
It might be that I'm going too fast.
It maybe is just slow. So it might be worth trying. Oh, I see it now.
We see it. Great. I'm just going to leave it. Okay, I'll slow down. Jeez. Okay, so we are here right now. We are at Humboldt Hot Air, which we're still under the venues, which is the Arcata. We're under the Arcata Playhouse. See, there's venues here, Arcata Playhouse, and we're down here right now, Humboldt Hot Air. So by having the venues fall under the local arts agency, we open the door for possible other things, like maybe a gallery, a community center, a new, multiplex theater in Arcata that will be, I don't know, in the future, dreaming big. So the other thing that follows under the local arts agency is arts education. There's a program called Apprentice Entertainment that runs out of the Playhouse, a family fun series, putting artists in schools, and other initiatives. So artists, workshops, and educations, and how that program can serve outside of the Arcata Playhouse as well as the Arcata Playhouse. So really looking at going beyond the doors of just this venue, that arts education falls within the city of Arcata. So like, I'm just going to say it's not anything that's actually happening, but say the Sanctuary came to the Playhouse Arts Agency and said, hey, we want to run a school arts education program. We could work with them to write grants or work with them to support permitting or whatever needed to be supported to help that arts education flourish so that we can really get arts education in Arcata schools. Another element of the Playhouse Arts Local Arts Agency is community and public art. So right now you're seeing Art on the Fence that's on N Street and on F Street. We are just putting up a gateway sculpture in the Creamery District. It is part of a program called Keeping the Giant Jolly that is focused on Jolly Giant Creek. There's street painting, any other initiatives, outdoor events like Fervorfest. So there's the public art as a program. Also part of the local arts agency would be being a city liaison. So looking at how the arts agency can help with requests for proposals and policies, communications and advocacy between the artists and the community in the city of Arcata, and streamlining permitting so that the artist has a clear direction and a clear stream to get in, and they don't get bogged down by permitting or figuring out who to talk to or where to go. So working with the city to really make that easy for artists to get down and do their work. Another element of the program is supportive resources for artists. So how we would look at being a part of conversations on housing, healthcare, and just arts, which is a part of Equity Arcata, that is looking at how we use artists and the voice of artists to engage in conversations around equity, as well as supporting artists who are not at, who sometimes are not at the table when things are being discussed. So how we look at arts as a means towards racial and social justice. So another area is looking at districts, the Creamery District, the Marsh District, Main Street, Bayside, Gintoli, and this list has not been developed. And we're calling these the building blocks of the local arts agency, so that you could begin to decentralize some of what goes on in the local arts agency. That, for example, I could say to Gintoli Lane, they want to do a big outdoor spectacle, or they want to run an art center on Gintoli Lane, that in conjunction with Playhouse Arts, we could support the initiative in Gintoli, but it wouldn't be a Playhouse Arts or an Arcata Playhouse initiative, but that as the local arts agency, we would be there to support that initiative, and they could come to this building block. They could come as part of a building blocks of the local arts agency to say, we're doing this, and maybe the Marsh District says, holy cow, we want to do the same thing. And so it's just a way to open up communications up between many areas of Arcata, and begin to look at resource allocation as well. So who has resources, who can share resources, who has what resources, and how they can all work together. We're also looking at festivals. We looked at the Fervor Fest as a fundraiser for Playhouse Arts, the local arts agency, which would then support all of these measures. So that's kind of the programming end of the local arts agency. And I know, like, thus far, as the local arts agency, we've been Creamery District centric, and that it grew out of the Arcata Playhouse and out of the Creamery District. And what we're looking forward to moving forward with this model is, how do we serve the whole community? And that eventually what happens is, maybe I am not the head of the local arts agency or the Playhouse, but maybe I am really just over here on 4 on the floor doing productions, and how we set the systems up that we see a vision for all of them, so that we can move forward inclusively and begin to build on what is the local arts agency, and sort of things that we're in motion with granting and with granting bodies, and that we've been working on it for almost 14 years now to build this up to here. And so trying to unpeel those threads. The core governance of Playhouse Arts would be the Playhouse Board. They'd have fiduciary program support and advocacy, fundraising, hands-on participation. And then the staff, who we hire for staff. Right now, we have hired Andrea Stuckey, who is part of YAWS. So she is part of our over here, artists in residence. We've hired Laura Munoz, who is working in community outreach as well as migrations. And then we have Haley Davis, who's our WA manager, Mackenzie Ridgewood, who works with our teens and artists in schools. Haley works in the schools as well. Sarah McKinney is the education director. And then James Hildebrandt is an artist that is working on the Gateway sculpture, as well as he helps with facilities. And then we have other people running the radio station. So looking at how our staff helps with implementation of the many programs, helps with advocacy, roles and responsibilities are defined through staff. The staff helps get funding, which feeds into the arts agency, which feeds into all these program arms. Oops, sorry about that. And then the administration of it all. So this core governance is under Playhouse Arts. One of the central things, or not, I don't know if it's central, but one of the groovy things about the arts agency is we're putting together an advisory committee. And so the advisory committee right now, we're looking at a preliminary advisory committee of 30 people for a year to really set out, you'll see there's a big blank space after roles and responsibilities, to really help set out some of the roles and responsibilities of the advisory committee and to work with Just Arts so that we make sure that what we're doing fits with an equity lens of racial and social justice. And also looking at how our building blocks that I talked about over here that I call districts, our building blocks are represented within the advisory committee. So represented for project leadership, project development, and those roles and responsibilities of the building blocks. And then how this advisory committee really works with the board and the staff to make proposals to so that we have this advisory committee from the community to make sure that our lines of communication remain open. Another part of it is city staff and making sure that we have fulfilled legal city requirements and that we have a city liaison involved with us so that they know what we're doing and we know where they're coming from, so that we say we want to build a 40-foot tire swing. And the city of Arcata says, that's a great idea, but geez, that's a lot of liability and we'll have to get our engineers on it. And is that feasible and can that happen? So those kind of things to run through the city staff. And so that is my mind map. That is a starting, it's not a starting place because we've been starting for a while, but it's in motion, but it's the ability to contribute to it is still very much there. Wait, I'm just seeing if there's anybody in the chat saying anything. I think we'll ask for questions
We have a raised hand
Yes,
by Jean Atherton.
Yes, what?
Okay.
I'll take a question right now.
Jean, I'm allowing you to talk. Go for it.
Go, Jean, talk. Hello, Jean?
Jean, if you'd like to ask your question, you're welcome to, or else just let us know a little later on. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's kind of the basic structure that we're looking at. There are some larger sort of, do you have anything to add to that, Fawn? Oh, wait, hold up a sec. No? Okay. Feel free to interrupt whenever the mood hits you. So that's kind of the structure that we're trying to get at, mostly because the idea being that me, Jackie, I am only one person, and I kind of set up all these things that really require more than one person to execute them well. And so we're looking at how we can peel away those things so that the execution and moving forward, the structure can really support robust support for artists and artisans, robust programming for schools and people coming to see theater. Spaces are supported, and not only from a larger structural point of view, like, I talked jokingly about a multi-million-dollar theater, which in fact I'm not so fond of. I would rather see multi-million dollars go into artists in the community, that they actually have a livable wage and are actually paid to be artists, so they don't have to have 6 jobs, and then see what happens from there when we invest in the people. So I say that, but ultimately I think that to invest in people and artists in your community is so important. And for me, goes beyond investing in a theater, because we have some awesome theater spaces here in Arcata already, with the high school, with we have the thing on the plaza. We have the exit coming up on. There's a new theater company coming in, new theater space coming in on the plaza. There's the Arcata Playhouse. There's the Sanctuary. There's the Bayside Grange. There's a lot going on that I feel like if we were to invest in people and artists, then a lot of things would naturally occur. So that brings me around to our core, what is it? I've lost the word. Our core, not beliefs, but it's
Values.
Pardon?
Core values is how
Yes, that's it. I forget that word, value. Our core values. So our core values were advocacy, planning, and connectivity. So looking at how the local arts agency works within, I'm going to say them again, advocacy, planning, and connectivity. So some of the things that fall into advocacy are looking at how we can streamline permitting for events, so that you could paint a mural on your street and you wouldn't have to carry $2 million insurance, or that the permitting itself would allow that to happen in a fluid, organic way. So how we can look at streamlining our permitting. Also looking at, right now we're working with multiple agencies throughout the county on a countywide tax initiative for artists in the whole county. And so how, as an arts agency, we show up to those discussions so that the city of Arcata and the people in Arcata are represented in that discussion without in a more cohesive way, and so that not everybody has to go to the meetings and be involved in the planning of it, but that we have a funnel for that information to get forward. And also looking, in COVID especially, looking at plans for reopening. There was no plans from the state on reopening theater venues. And so theater companies throughout the county got together, and Shoshana has really been seminal in that as well, of designing a Google form that says these are the things they're going to want you to know about when you go to plan your event. When she's been planning events with Main Street Arcata, she sort of had this guideline for it that is a model for, I think, what the local arts agency can do. It's a model process for what your local arts agency could do for you. So I've got that. So that comes, I think that comes under planning more than advocacy. So, and also looking at how we could collect a database. And again, going back to Shoshana and her work with Main Street, collecting information in a central spot so that people can come to Arcata and see everything that's going on, not just the people who can afford to pay to advertise what's going on, which is sometimes what happens with some of the Google searches, or some of the various things that happen where you have to pay a price to be listed. But how do we engender connectivity with people who are smaller and maybe don't have those budgets? Because the cultural tourist pays more money per capita in your town, if we're just to talk about arts as tourism, pays more money per capita in your town than any other tourist. And so if you can lure some of those both have people come from out of town to find these smaller, eclectic little things that everybody looks for now, as well as support the eclectic little something that everybody's looking for within your society. I think it's just, it builds health on all accounts. Um, and, just building off the conversation that just came before us, how important the arts are in building a healthy community outside of tourism and economic development, but looking at how a robust program in schools really works for kids in success in math and in science, and success in empathy, and success in personal expression, and how that ability to communicate carries forward in their life from that day forward. So those kind of things I think are part of, falling into that whole programming section of the local arts agency. We also are putting together a database of artists so that we could have a list of artists in one spot. So if someone shows up and says, or if someone's looking for a partner in a dance or whatever, that we have this database that people can connect to, that we can engender connectivity between artists and support amongst artists. So that's going to be another aspect of that. And I don't know, Fawn, if you have that close at hand, if you could throw that into the chat, that
Yeah.
would be great. My so that's my vision of the local arts agency, and what I think. I have to move over here because my computer's at 27%. It's just technically, one sec. I got to move more. I can't be plugged into the internet and my computer at the same time. Okay. So Fawn will put that Google in the Google form, the artist database. So if there are any artists on line, just sign up, put your name in that Google form. So I think that's my spiel on the local arts agency. Holy cow, it's 1:36. I talked for a long time. Do you have anything to add that I missed out, Fawn?
I nothing to add, but I guess just to reiterate that a big reason for developing this broader vision for the Playhouse Arts serving as the local arts agency is to bring more of the community around Playhouse as a convener and coordinator of arts, and really, as Jackie mentioned, the connectivity, connecting all the great things that are happening in the community to each other, so that there's a lot more cohesion around arts in Arcata, and reduce the fragmentation that kind of tends to evolve as new groups and new people join into the arts world. So I think that's just wanting to reiterate that it's about really bringing together people closer and making things more connected. The local arts agency. But you did a great job summarizing all that, Jackie.
Thanks, Fawn. Does anybody have any questions out there? I see an attendee with a hand up. Let me see if I can, how do I do that? Let me see. Answered. Nope, I don't see anything.
It's Jean, and we're happy to let you ask your question online. Here, Jean, I'm going to let you talk, and if you'd like to ask it, go right ahead. Or you can type in your question, and that's fine too.
Maybe she just left her hand up. I do that. Just walk around with my hand up. So I guess if there's no questions, we could move along to the one of the things that we wanted to talk about too was where the local arts agency fits within the strategic arts plan, and how those two work together to really they just work together to support artists, with the goal of supporting artists and artisans and art in our community. So let me I can't do anything. So I would just say Gillen and Dilo, take it away. I think we have like, 10, 15 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah, I
Let's
think
see if you can talk as
Shoshana-
fast as me.
Shoshana may need to make Gillen a co-host because we have a presentation to share.
Right.
I'm not sure if she can share her screen.
Yeah. Dilo, any intro you'd like to give before we
Okay.
go full presentation mode?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, apologies if our PowerPoint is weird. If our technology falls apart, we apologize in advance. But we're really excited to be here and to be partners with Jackie and Fawn on this. Gillen and I both have come into this about 1.5 years ago, so not as long-standing as Jackie and Fawn, but we are really excited to be here for sort of the more implementation side of this. It seems like things really are headed in a good direction. And the new council, we have 3 new council members. They just adopted some of their annual goals last night, and arts are in there. So I'm really excited to see that the groundwork that you guys have been laying for us is really being recognized and accepted. So with that, yeah, Gillen, can you?
Yeah,
share
I
your
can now
screen?
share my screen. Thank you, Shoshana.
Great.
So this is a status report presentation that we conveniently gave to our city council right before their goal setting to ensure that they stuck arts in there. And here we go. So yeah, hi, my name is Gillen Martin. I'm a Lead for America Fellow in the City Manager's Office of the City of Arcata. With me is Dilo Freitas, who's a Senior Planner with the City of Arcata. We have both been the leads on this project since we started in the same week in 2019. And for some quick context, the Strategic Arts Plan just typically outlines a community's goals and vision in terms of the arts, and then identifies actionable strategies to meet those goals. So in 2019, the Arcata City Council member, and specifically former council member Susan Ornelas, requested staff to begin drafting a strategic arts plan. And as we've mentioned, this idea of a plan for the arts had been called for and championed by organizations like Playhouse Arts for years prior. And in the words of Councilmember Ornelas, this plan should honor and support artists. So when Dilo and I came on in the fall of 2019, we began connecting with the Playhouse as the City of Arcata's local arts agency and our primary partner in this plan, as well as other stakeholders and organizations in Arcata's creative sector to gauge what needs this plan should support. And here we have an excerpt of the intent statement from the document. We also have a painted version of a draft version that was up on the sanctuary wall right before COVID. We had a lot of our preliminary plan materials up in a great exhibit. So there's been 2 primary avenues through which we've collected the data that's gone into this plan so far. And the first is the hearing ear sculpture. So the hearing ear is a sculpture that was created by Haley Davis of the Playhouse. And it allows for Arcata culture to be characterized in the voices of the Arcata community. It has been stationed at significant community sites such as the Farmers Market, the HSU Library, the Sanctuary, and it asks passersby what shouts culture in Arcata from their perspective and allows for written comments to be dropped in. So here we have some example submissions. We garnered total 111, which have been compiled by City and Playhouse staff. And have really informed a lot of this plan. Just community members' feelings on the culture of Arcata is a crucial avenue of data to collect. So here we see some of them are fun, some of them are positive, some of them celebrate our community and uplift things that this plan should uplift, and others are places where community members would clearly like to see reflection on our community, growth from our community, challenge to the Arcata community as it is now. The second avenue of data that we have been, and all of the hearing air data will be made public in an appendix to the Strategic Arts Plan. And the second avenue is stakeholder interviews. So since the fall of 19, we've conducted 43 stakeholder interviews. These are some of the organizations and institutions that we've engaged, either the directors or representatives of these organizations. And through all of these conversations, we've been making an effort to gain the perspective of the people most intimately aware of Arcata's arts and cultural needs, the creative sector needs, our artists, our arts organizers, how can the city support these folks, and also what broader community needs in Arcata do arts and culture already serve, and how do we support that relationship there. So the data that we've had access to thus far has allowed us to identify 6 primary outcomes for the Strategic Arts Plan.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Gillen. So I'm going to jump in and finish us off here. I'm probably going to run through this pretty quickly to leave some time for questions and discussion. But this is a list, as Gillen said, of our goals so far. As was mentioned earlier by Fawn and Jackie, this is still very much working goals. We are assuming that new things may also rise to the top once the draft is released to the general public and artists and others have an opportunity to review it. But here are the things that we've heard again and again from a variety of stakeholders, and so we've decided to float these as the direction for the plan. So the first 4 are more goals related to the vision that Arcata has for itself as an artist-serving community, and the last 2 are really more functional, structural type goals. And these kind of speak to, as Jackie was saying, building healthy communities to the art, creating connections to the art, connecting art to HSU, and using art as a tool for education in the community. But goals 1 and 3 kind of speak to art as a way to improve opportunity and equity for residents, including making sure that public arts and artistic infrastructure is distributed more equitably throughout Arcata. Right now, the plaza sees a lot of that investment, which is built into the policy that we've had for decades. And goal 3 is really identifying Arcata as a place that is challenging to remain financially feasible to many artists, as a place to live, to work, and to sell their art. So the last 2 goals are really about how do we make this plan successful? How do we implement it? How do we get funding for it? Goal 5 is to use this plan as a tool to secure funding for the arts, make sure it provides the goals that funders are looking for and the data that funders may be looking for. And the final one is what Jackie and Fawn were speaking to already about really continuing to build on the existing connection with Playhouse as our local arts agency, and build out that advisory committee as a way to continue to keep the plan nimble and to pursue projects at the right time with the right people. Gillen, can you go to the next one, please? So we've been talking a lot about the plan, but where in the world is it? It currently is still with us in final formatting. We plan to release it with Jackie's assistance probably sometime this month. We just got it back from our admin who is doing some final formatting. And we have brought it already to a small group of stakeholders, including Jackie and Fawn, as well as representatives from the Ink People, the Sanctuary, and HSU. So the next step will be to release it to the general public and to have them review it for the goals, see if anything is missing from our general overarching framework. And then in April, May, and June, we plan to dig into more specifically some of the identified goals that are already in the plan and perform listening sessions around those goals. So coming from a place of assuming that those goals are representative, we'd like to hear more about how we can actually do these things. What does it mean to really support Arcata's artists? What is the city's role in that? What is the local art agency's role in that? And how can we work together as a community to really achieve that vision? Next slide. So that is our presentation. We have much more work to do in partnership, and we look forward to hearing ideas from all of you. Thank you.
I will
Great.
just add that if you want to be in the loop on when these listening sessions hosted by the city and other partners are happening, please stick your email in the chat and I will put you on the listserv to let you know when those dates are going to be.
Great. Thank you for that. It's interesting that we ended with, or your slide presentation ended with the art on the fence on F Street, because that's one of the things that's an actual actionable item that the Playhouse is engaging in right now, is how do we look at censorship and art, because that's a big question of public art and community art and censorship, and how do we use art one of the discussions that we're having as the local arts agency is how do we structure public art in a way that is not censored, or what is that, and how does that work? What are your parameters and your guidelines? So we kind of have a listening session set up for that, all ready to go, just to speak to artists about what they feel about censorship, and then to talk to people about what they feel about censorship. So it would be the same thing. If you're interested, I might grab some of the names from the chat I think I will grab some of the names from the chat from Gillen when you get those from the chat, just to have people, if they want to be involved in those discussions about community art, because there are many sides to the coin of, kind of art that matches your couch, and then art that provokes conversation, and then art that is protest art. And so what are all the things in between, and just to have those conversations about that community art. It's difficult to do over Zoom. I'll say that. So part of us has been holding back until we can actually meet outside, even that we could gather outside somewhere and have these discussions about maybe even in front of the N Street mural, that's the art on the fence that's on N Street here in Arcata, which is on private property, which affords you more lassitude, if that's the word that I'm looking for, but gives you more ability to move. Does anybody out there have any questions or comments, or is like, I can hardly wait to be involved in this process. I want to volunteer 30 hours a week of my life, and it turns out I am, an arts planner that lived in New York for 20 years. Not New York, it could be anywhere. The interesting thing is trying to connect with rural cities, because our questions and our concerns as a rural, remote city are very different than the questions and concerns that are brought up in New York City that I just said. So, I've tried to work a little bit with the Rural Assembly and some of the work that they're doing around connecting rural artists, and rural artist women particularly is the avenue that I went down, just because it was a rural woman lead conference, which is really important, because we have a different kettle of fish, as my mom would say. We just have different opportunities and threats and weaknesses. So that's the interesting thing about that. Nobody has any questions. Does anybody on the panel have any questions that we can debate about right now? I have, many things rolling around in my head right now, just as an exciting time for the arts, and how the arts are really showing up at the front of civic conversations where they perhaps would not have shown up before, or where we kind of had to really elbow our way to not even the front, but into the lineup in some civic conversations. And so that's an exciting time. Look, there's a comment from Megan Betts. I had no idea how much goes into arts. Thank you. I moved here a few years ago, and I'm blown away regularly how much this community values artists. I came from Minnesota, and it is really hard for people, and so you don't see it in the community like you do here. That's funny, because I always think of Minnesota as like so much support for the arts. So it's like grass is always greener kind of thing. Yeah, it's true. We have a pretty amazingly awesome community that are willing to look at things and innovate and look at new ways to be. And I think that's our strength. I think that's our rural remote strength too. And I think it's the beauty of who we are and where we live. That entrepreneurial spirit that artists bring to a community too, because as Libby Maynard says, every artist is a small business. And so it's true. So how do we, if we're going to talk about I dream a dream, I dream a dream where we have artists at the, within Playhouse Arts, that we support artists. My vision is 10 artists a year, that we support them with a wage of $35,000 a year, which is, a little bit above poverty, but that's what they do. They live and they create art, and whatever that mode means to them, whether they are in schools or not, whether they're poets, whether they live in their house for a year and actually don't show anything to the community until 10 years later, or however that works, that we invest that $350,000 a year into local artists and give them a year-long residency in this awesome place where we live, and to see what that does for our community as a grand experiment in social growth, which right now it feels like the opportunity is ripe for that kind of thing. I've written grants asking specifically for that, but I think I was 10 years early, because people were like, what kind of a crazy plan is that? How are you going to show the data on that? How are you going to show your outcomes and your, all the things that you have to have? But maybe now is the time. Maybe people see the outcomes more now than they did before in a data sort of way.
I do think that now is a really, really ripe time for a lot of this. And I think that a lot of the, like you're saying, Jackie, things that people just assumed could never work are happening now by necessity, during the pandemic. And universal basic income, like they're doing it in Spain. So things like that are happening. And it is really exciting to see the government kind of catching up. And I wanted to make a shameless plug, since we're talking about timing, about the fact that the city is updating its general plan right now. And we've had artists coming to these visioning meetings and giving their feedback and talking about how to address, housing needs and homelessness and individual health using art as a form of healing and expression, and how exciting it is to see, bureaucracy and art coming together really well, and having that be very successful, and really feeling like we're engaging that population of artists locally and looking to them for solutions. And so I really appreciate that everyone has been doing their part to show up and be in the right room at the right time. And now is the right time. And I wanted to also drop the link in the chat to our general plan update page, where you can see all the summaries from all the visioning we've done so far and all the recordings to the videos. And if you do have time and check it out, you'll see art is mentioned a lot, and we're going to continue to engage. So if you're interested in that process, please stay tuned.
Hey, Laura, I just saw that you took your video on. Do you have something to say?
No, I'm just listening and getting ready for 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, great. You're welcome. Laura Woods is on at 2 o'clock. She's going to do some Yurok storytelling, and that'll be awesome. And then tomorrow she's going to do a movie. Sorry, I'm distracted. Yes to the general plan. Yes to being involved in civics. Yes to having artists on so many committees within the city that doesn't feel like an artist belongs there, like, planning and engineering, and getting someone on all the different, the safety committee and the planning committee, and finding artists who, or people who are leaning towards the arts to be involved in those plans. I think, just going off the conversation that Laura and Judge Abby we had before, is the intersection between justice and art, and empathy and healing, and well-being of society as a whole. I think that the local arts agency can help with that, and looking at models of cultural centers that really offer a step forward in who we are as a people, that I think is really, part of the impetus, or perhaps the whole impetus behind Playhouse Arts, is to say, yeah, I'm an actor and I'm a writer and I'm a performer, but it is part of a larger vision and movement in our community that can embrace and heal some of the things that and some of the systems that we have developed that, quite frankly, are not serving us. So looking at arts as advocates, and the arts agency as an advocacy for that.
Just real quick, I'm seeing a question in the chat about, please explain the arts community in relation to Humboldt State University, and how is that connection demonstrated?
Well, it's interesting because we have two, we have HSU in Arcata, and the arts agency here, Haley Davis, is a graduate of Humboldt State University. Our education director, Sarah McKinney, is a graduate of Humboldt State University. And I think the graduates of Humboldt State University wend their way out into the community and stay and can't leave. I mean, how many people on this panel have come through Humboldt State and stayed in this region? And then the other arts organization that is here is Del Arte. And so a lot of Del Arte grads will graduate from Del Arte with a master's program and stay in the community. I arrived here because of Del Arte. And so the arts, work together that way. I think the relationship with HSU is ripe for developing. And I think HSU is interested in that. And I think as the local arts agency, we can facilitate some of that working with Humboldt State. Right now, we have an exhibit with the Goudini Gallery on the F Street Art on the Fence. And we worked with Brittany Britton from the Goudini Gallery, and we worked with the City of Arcata and Playhouse Arts to put that exhibit on the fence. And so I really feel like that is a rich potential. Maybe HSU wants a gallery in town to town. How can we use public and community art to connect students to our community and our community to students? We're looking at, the bridge between HSU and the City of Arcata, what we can do there. So all of that is very ripe right now. And so now is a good time to get involved and bring your comments forward. So I look forward to, look, Shoshana is also an HSU graduate, and she teaches at the art department. So there are so many people that crossover happens organically. So it is 2:01. I could probably talk about this for a long time, talk at you for a long time about this, but we are going to move forward with our program for O2F. Laura Woods is coming up right now to do some storytelling. So if you have kids or you want to just stay around and hear Laura, she is an amazing orator, and I could listen to her tell stories. In fact, I did on Sunday. We sat on the phone for like 40 minutes, me listening to stories I gotta go, but I don't want to. So I'm excited that Laura's with us. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody. Thanks, Fawn, for all your work and how you will continue to work. Don't think you're off the hook with the local arts agency. And Gillen and Dilo and the City of Arcata for really doing some groundbreaking work, I think, on what the arts can do in a community, and really committing